All right, today I'm excited to welcome Vince Quinn to the show. Vince, thanks for joining me. How's it going today?
It's great. It's great. I slept like 4 hours, but I'm energetic. I'm alive. We're doing well. So,
I mean, if it works, it works. I mean, 4 hours of sleep, but I mean, it is what it is. Is that a cycle where you're going to sleep for 4 hours and then crash for a bunch a couple days later? Because that used to be my MO.
yeah, I'm going to take a nap at like 3 o'clock. As soon as my appointments are done, I'm laying down. I'm shutting it down for an hour, and then I'll figure it out later. Yeah.
Hey Vince, I appreciate you coming on the show. I like to talk about how people got to where they're at, but to start out, I like to have them introduce themselves, let people know who they are now, and then maybe it makes sense on how you got there. So if you could introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll talk about the journey to get there.
Yeah. So Vince Quinn, co-founder and creative director at SBX Productions, and what we do is we're a podcast production company. We help businesses understand podcasts and how to use it as a marketing tool, how to create opportunity, flood their social media, like all the fun things you can do with a podcast. That's what we help people with.
So this must have been your dream as a child. You were sitting in your room and you're going, I am going to be a podcast producer. I'm going to help businesses expand their reach by doing podcasts. What'd you want to be when you were a kid, man?
Yeah, I wanted to like design video games as a kid. I mean, I'd still do it now. I look at stuff sometimes and I'm like, man, I should have been an indie developer. But man, yeah, I thought that was going to be a big thing of what I do. And then on the other side, something that I did end up doing was I was a sports radio host for 10 years. Or I was in sports radio, you could say, for 10 years and hosted for 5. Like that was to be a football obsessive in Philadelphia where the Eagles are so big. I mean, that was a dream job. And yeah, it was pretty amazing that I got to do that. So I kind of ended up, I knew I wasn't going to play. You know, I was a terrible athlete, so I was never going to make it. But it was cool to talk about it. Yeah, I was realistic.
I grew up south of Buffalo, New York, and diehard Bills fan growing up in the '80s, '90s, and so I know heartbreak of like beyond belief. But it was obvious to me at a young age I wasn't playing football. I
Yep.
just wasn't there. I took the route of golf. Like I could be crappy at golf and still feel good about myself. But so you grew up in Philly, realized you couldn't you weren't going to be an Eagle. You weren't going to fulfill the invincible role there.
Right.
Did you end up going through high school? Did you go to college for anything in particular, or how did that journey start out?
Yeah. So I went to St. Joe's Prep in Philly. I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt for it right now, which I bought my senior year of high school. This is like a 20-year-old sweatshirt. So that's pretty cool. And then yeah, I went to Fordham University up in the Bronx. TV and radio was my major. I did not learn anything though, like nothing. I mean, they taught me nothing. It's actually shocking how little they taught me in school. I was never in a TV station. I was never in a radio station. I was never an intern for anything. I never recorded anything really. I did some video editing for different courses, but like I had no practical skills. They taught me nothing. So I had to learn everything on my own. And what happened was, as soon as I was graduating college, I was like, oh, I need proof of concept. Like I need to show people that I can actually do something. So that's when I got to the point where I started a sports blog, because this is like 2012 and that's what everybody was doing. So I started a sports blog, designed the whole website, all the different logos, using Photoshop, writing articles, and recording a podcast. I was trying to do as many things I possibly could to be like, hey, I get it. I have some technical skills. Like just get me in somewhere and give me a chance was really the whole thing.
Was the goal to be in production, or did you have a desire to be that on-air guy?
So yeah, I wanted to be on air, and it was funny too because I saw it a lot of different ways. Ultimately, if I had my like absolute number one dream job at that age, it would be a late night talk show host. Like I loved Conan O'Brien. It still is my guy, like Mr. Conan O'Brien fan right here. So huge fan of Conan. Always wanted to do something like that. I loved how silly he was and to be able to have all these great conversations with people. And then beyond that, I loved comedy in general. So I was writing jokes. I thought about stand-up. I did some open mics and worked at a comedy club at one point, was doing 5 minutes up front and setting up the room. I wrote some jokes in radio. Like I saw a lot of different aspects of it. And I just thought, as long as I'm entertaining people in some way, ultimately I'll figure out what that is. But I saw a lot of different versions of what I thought it could be. And I was just trying to see sort of where it would fall.
Gotcha. So it was wherever I can get in, whatever skills can get me in, and I'll figure out how to get there after that. I mean, fake it till you make it, right, man?
100%. Yeah, that was it. I had no idea because I know world perspective. Like I wasn't well educated on how different career paths work. I didn't have good connections within any industry. My mom's an accountant for a small firm in the suburbs of Philly, and my dad worked in General Motors for 35 years. I could care less about cars, so it was just like I had no perspective. I just had to go and figure it out, and that's what I decided to do.
So you started up the blog and the podcast. Showed you had some skills. Was that a way into a job, or how did you end up in radio and hosting your own nationally syndicated show? By the way, if nobody has heard of you, the name rang like when you popped up on Podmatch. I was like, I know that name.
You're one of like 6 people that knows my name, but I'll take it. I like it's honestly I appreciate it because like. Yeah, for me, the whole thing was crazy. I mean, I got into it because what happened was I was working at a pizza shop, no idea what to do after college. I have this sports blog. I'm just trying to do something. And I get a call from an uncle of mine who says he knows somebody that's looking for promotions people at the local sports radio station. So this is just going to events. You're setting up a tent. You're literally spinning a prize wheel for people and handing out T-shirts and pens. Like it is not a glamorous job. But I was like, you know what? It's better than a pizza shop. I'll take it. And I end up doing that job and get to work at some other stations that are in the company cluster there because there's like 6 stations all connected. And once I got in, it took me a little while to realize like, oh, people that have been in promotions have also gone over to the on-air side of this company, and I can actually get a job in sports radio. Like I didn't think I even when I first got the job there, I literally did not think that I could actually work in sports radio like that. I just thought I had a promotions gig and that was it. And it took me like 6 months for the light bulb to turn on and be like, hey, stupid, you can do this. You literally have a podcast. Like, go do this.
I was about a decade in hospitality behind the bar, and on Friday nights, Saturday nights, I dealt with you. Not you, but you, the promotions people coming from the radio station, and it's always like you're like, oh, 93X is showing up tonight. Who's gonna be here? And you got the 7 guys that are like their main headliners are like, yeah, none of them.
Yep.
But you do, like, I got to know quite a few of them pretty well, and it seemed like some did make that transition over to on air. Is it a testing ground for how personable, likable you are as an interacting with the public?
So it's interesting because a lot of times what happens is people in those roles, they're thinking about being on air, maybe potentially. They don't necessarily have the drive to do it because it's so disconnected. Like everything you're doing for events has nothing to do with what the actual on-air product is, other than you occasionally might be on the same floor in the same building or in the same room. But you don't do any work with those people necessarily. So with that, I had to actively kind of cross boundaries. Like I would finish a shift and put all the stuff away, unpack all the pens and shirts left over and whatever. And then I would go down the hall and I would go to the producers and just be like, hey, can I sit in for a couple of minutes? I just want to check out how you're doing all this stuff. Do you mind? And all these guys were cool. Like I was very lucky that all of these people were willing to give me a chance to see what they did, how they did it, and answer all of the questions that I had because I had a ton of questions. So I was always like that. But a lot of people that were in that spot, in that same promotions job, they weren't doing. I was literally the only guy that was doing that for the time that I was there. And everybody else, they ended up drifting into other things like sales, or maybe they would get into commercial production, or they would just leave. And this was just a filler job for them to make a couple of bucks as it came through, and they left the industry entirely. So it went all over the place, but it was shockingly few people that were truly on the air from doing this job.
You had to seek out the education you were supposed to get when you went to college on how to actually do this shit.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was a studio rat, like the way people say gym rat. Like I lived at the radio station, and it got to the point where I had a sleeping bag in my car. Like I literally slept on the couch at the station, like I don't know, a couple times a month, like 4 times a month. I would sleep there for even if it was for just like an hour or two, because I knew in between shifts or I'd work so long that I couldn't drive home. Like I had to keep the sleeping bag in the car. So I was an absolute nut about it, which paid off. But yeah, I mean, I had to be a crazy person to catch up, basically.
What was the break? How did you make that transition? Was there just a day that it all spun out, or how'd that go down?
Yeah, so this happened because literally the Pope came to Philly is why I got my first ever show. Yeah, it's crazy. It's because of the Pope.
Perfect.
So here's what happened is when the Pope came to
Are
Philly.
you Catholic? Are you Catholic?
I'll say raised Catholic. You know,
you knew the importance of the Pope.
Yes, I knew the Pope well. I was educated on him many times. At the time, I could probably recite the last 8 popes. You know what I mean? Like I was down. But yeah, so the Pope comes to Philly, and they basically shut down the city when that happens. And it was this weird thing where if you got in the city, you actually couldn't leave, which still does not make sense to me. But that's how they set it up. So all these hosts couldn't come in because a lot of these guys lived in Jersey. So what they needed was producers that could be there, and they put us up in a hotel around the corner. So we stayed at a hotel for a couple of days, and me and 2 other guys were really 3 other guys. Like it was like 8-hour shifts, and we would do that in rotation. And to reward us for doing all of those shifts, they gave us a crack on the air. So part of it, I think, was just necessity to fill the schedule, but I don't care. I got the chance. And once I got that opportunity, I was good enough that they said, oh, no, Vince actually has something. Like, we're going to give you more shifts. So I went from never doing a show live before to doing my first ever on-air show, 25 years old, in one of the biggest markets in the country. And then from there, they bumped me up to monthly rotation. Then I started getting in on the weekly spots, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Did all the prep you did with the blog and the podcast and all the reps on the mic, did that help you feel comfortable, or were you still nervous as hell when you signed on for the first time?
Yeah, both. I was way more experienced, and I had a good bit of confidence in myself in the big picture because I had done shows. I had people in the station that listened to those shows, and they gave me good feedback. So they knew I was working at it, that I wanted to get better, and I had a bunch of tape. So it was like, cool, let's go give Vince a shot. But once I got on, when they told me I had my first show, I was so anxious, and for forever, really. It took me maybe 4 years or so where I started to lose the nerves a little bit. But going into a show, it's public radio, man. Anybody can call in. You're on Twitter all the time. People are brutal out there. Like you had to be so on top of it. I had to build a thick skin. Like it was really hard. But so with that, I wanted to be so prepared, so sharp. I wanted to be entertaining. I wanted to have fun stuff to talk about. I wanted to make people laugh. I wanted to have good sound bites to play and goofy side stories to talk about. And, so having this like perfectionist bone in my body really drove me and gave me that anxiety. But at the same time, it's the same thing that made me really good. So yeah. It was worth the trade-off. It's just the package of what I needed to do the job.
You came up in a very coddling environment too there in Philly. The local sports fans there are known for just being so soft on everybody, especially their players and the people that are trying to support their players. So I bravo on that.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So you ended up starting doing just fill in part-time, breaking into the rotation. You ended up with your own show. And that ran for 5 years. Was that a daily show, a weekly show?
So I had a whole mix of different things. So it's interesting. When I was in Philly at WIP there, I was doing 1 or 2 shows a week on average. And that would be usually like Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And they didn't name that show. It was just like the evening show. It was just whoever you got that day, that's who was there. But I wouldn't even say like, hey, it's the Vince Quinn show. It would just be like, hey, it's Vince Quinn here with you, Right. So it was kind of disconnected because they had all these guys cycle through. So that's what I was doing for a lot of it. And then once I got to that national standpoint, and part of the reason I had to go national was because there weren't slots locally. There weren't places for me to get a full-time job. There's only 2 sports stations. One was doing significantly better than the other and is still doing significantly better than the other. So I was at the station with better ratings. I don't want to leave that. Not that they were coming at me at the other station either, but I wasn't begging to go there because I was at the better station. So
Right.
I felt like I was stuck. There weren't full-time opportunities available to me, but the national stuff was in New York, which I could drive to. It was like an hour 45 to get there from Philly, especially in late hours. So I was able to do that. And I got that national weekend overnight show, and they did call it my show. It was the Vince Quinn show. Like, how can I say no to that? It was a dream opportunity. So, or I mean, honestly, at least I thought it was, which is part of why I'm doing something completely different now. But
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I mean,
yeah.
you got your own show. That's I mean, unless it's the the prime time slot, that's kind of the pinnacle of what you were trying to achieve. Was it everything you had hoped it was?
Oh no, it was hardly anything of what I thought it was going to be. Is the truth of the matter? I mean, it was morale there was terrible. Frankly, just a lot of miserable people late at night, a lot of resentment for the company, a lack of trust. So there was all these guys that were a little bit older than me because I was young. I mean, I got my first national show. I got that show at 29. So a lot of guys were looking at me like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And he's from Philly, and they're all New Yorkers. And you know what I mean? So it's
Another
like
very coddling relationship there.
yeah. So it was a tough place to be. I mean, a lot of guys were very good to me, and I did build good relationships. But up front, there was a natural hesitation and a little bit of gap. And then beyond that, from a sales side, they weren't going out of their way to get me sponsorships or anything. They kind of looked at me like I was an alien when I even asked about it. And I was like, I'm nationally syndicated here. Like we're on 225 stations or so. Like, you don't think there's any value in going out and trying to find sponsorships for me? Like, you're not interested in that. And they basically said no. So they weren't building my brand. They weren't going to bring in extra money for me either because they weren't selling any of this stuff. I was capped there too because it was all of these full-time people that were younger and not giving up these slots. And younger for radio is, 40s, like mid to late 40s, early 50s, like these, but they're not going anywhere for another 10, 15, 20 years. So like,
Oh, at least, right?
right. So yeah, it was just like, I'm completely stuck. I have nowhere else to go for a while because now I've already hit national and I'm doing local at the same time. I'm stuck in both places. There was all of these layoffs that were happening because radio changed after COVID. People weren't in the car as much. Their listening habits changed. They got more into podcasts. So layoffs are happening everywhere. I didn't feel good about the future of the industry, just radio. Sports felt a little oversaturated as well. Like everybody's got sports content, all these sports podcasts. I was doing them myself. So when I was piling everything up, it's like, okay, well, I can stick at this career for however long. I mean, I could always have a job in radio because I'm good enough. You know what I mean? But it was just a question of, is it going to be full time? Is it reliable? Do I have control on that show? Do I have management that trusts me and supports me and wants to work with me and sell me and build me as a brand? And if not, then I need to do something else because I don't want to die in this industry. I did it for 10 years. I got my time in. I did good shows. I got as far as I reasonably could for that age. Like I left with no regrets ultimately.
So
But
were you
yeah.
were you putting your show out as a podcast, or were you putting other shows out along with your full time?
So they were doing podcast versions of my show, and then I was working on different podcasts, like different Eagles podcasts being in Philly. So I was connected to a lot of different stuff and experimenting with things here and there. Let me just try this for a couple shows and see how it goes. So it was things like that. But yeah, it was very experimental, nothing too solid. There were times over the years where I would work with a show for like 2 years or something like that, but it came and went because ultimately I had to put radio first, or things got crazy for one reason or another. It's just a wild world.
So you realized you weren't happy, that this wasn't going to be what you wanted to do much longer. Like you said, you could have if you needed to. What kind of spurred that transition into going out on your own and figuring it out that way?
Yeah, so part of it was during the pandemic. They had this moment when it first hit in March of 2020. They made cuts at the national station. And even though I had the national show, technically I was a part-time shift employee. So, which was crazy to think about, to have the show called The Vince Quinn Show, and I'm literally just it. They just gave me the shift every week and decided to brand it. Is basically what happened. So that was nuts. And so with that, once the pandemic hit, they actually cut me from the roster for a little bit. They gave somebody else my show because they were older, they had a relationship with that person, and I lost out due to politics. Even though, I mean, and it's my opinion, but I think I was better than that guy, and I was younger. So I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, well, I just got left out in the cold as a young guy that was trying to do all the right stuff, constantly working to get better, building good relationships with management, like trying to take care of the guys around me, the other producers and stuff, as best as I could. And so with that, plus all the other concerns with the industry, it's like, I got to get the hell out of here, because it was another shock to the core of, the security in this industry is not very good. And at the same time, or let's say a couple months after I initially got cut from CBS, and they did bring me back a couple months later, what happened was I got connected to a podcast studio, and they were trying to figure out what to do. They had no real hosting experience. They were running their own podcast, but I was a radio professional. I'd done producing in a lot of different ways. I was hosting. So I brought a level of credibility. So me and another guy ended up leaving radio and going all in on a studio there for a little bit. And that opportunity of, okay, I can leave radio and get into podcasting where there is a future. And as much as I don't know anything about business, I can figure out what my life is going to be though. And I can give this an honest go. I'd rather go jump all in and take the risk than stay in radio and potentially just basically waste my life. It was scary.
Well, yeah, just kind of float along at their whim. Like you said, it likely, or in your opinion, a better show. And you just got bumped for someone because, it's who you know. It's not how good you are. And if it's starting to happen that early, you start to question how long before I'm the guy that knows somebody that gets to be slid into these spots and be the good guy. So, you went off with somebody else and you went all in on a podcast studio. So you guys were recording and then also producing others. So you were doing your own shows in the studio, producing other shows. How did it go?
Yeah, for a while, terribly. It was really bad. I had no business experience whatsoever. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what it took. It didn't understand the mechanics of it, basic business finance stuff. I didn't know anything. I just knew I was really good at radio. And I was hoping that I could help these people come up with the best shows for themselves. Let's get these great topics. Let's execute a good show. And it didn't work because all these people, they were garage bands. They're like, hey, let's talk about our, we want to be the next big sports show. We want to talk about what we did at the bar. It's going to be so interesting. But they didn't have any business behind it. They weren't business owners themselves. They were hobbyists that were hoping to get famous. So right. Paying a studio and somebody like me to help them with that kind of work didn't make any sense. So everything kept falling apart, and we were overcommitting to these people that were underpaying. So it was just a bad place to be. So what we did is ultimately it's at a point now where we help businesses. So business coaches, consultants, we work with organizations and let them launch podcasts that can help with their community building. And, our show is for informing podcasters about and business owners about how to run a better podcast. So everything is a lot simpler and cleaner and tied together. There's stronger business elements to all of it now. It all makes way more sense. But yeah, it took a couple of years to really get to that point and figure it out because we just didn't know any better.
Yeah, so networking, I've done shows now. This was 3 years, 4 years, maybe. I don't know. I've done morning shows and interview shows and all sorts of stuff. And this go around, I really tried to network more with podcasters and look out there. And so I joined a bunch of Facebook groups about podcasters, and the eye-opening experience of the different MOs behind shows blew my mind. And you touched on two of them there. There's the hobbyist that thinks that their stories from the bar are super interesting, and a million people are going to want to listen to them. But then there's the business people. And when they start asking questions, it's almost blatantly clear what type of people they are and what their motives for the show are, and understanding that, business coming in because of the show is actually you're getting paid for doing the show, that it doesn't need to have a check that says the XYZ podcast here, we're paying you.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing is everybody's always like, oh, well, I'm trying to monetize the show. I want to get sponsors. And it's like, okay, well, you're a business technology coach. Who's sponsoring this show? You don't have an audience. So right. You need to figure out a lot of things first. And your business is the sponsor of the show. So every time as a business owner, you automatically have a sponsorship because you own a business. So right. Sponsor yourself, use all the stuff to fuel all of that, and you're going to be fine. Yeah, it's and like you said it very well. I think people philosophically need to look at it as it's not about your podcast making money. It's, is your business making more money, is the whole idea. And so, and that's everything. But yeah, some people never figure that out, that they're all following that entertainment blueprint. And it's really hard. Like I feel for people because they just don't know what a good example is of what to do.
So you mentioned real quick, and then we'll start to wrap up real quick. But you mentioned that you started the studio and you knew all the function, the technical stuff, the how to do a podcast, how to do all this. You didn't know the business side. Did you end up bringing someone in as a partner to help you with that? Did you just figure it out? I think a lot of people have skills and they know that they can run a business on their skills, but they don't have any idea on business. What is a tip that you can give them for bringing that and meshing that all together?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just became a study nut is really what happened. I mean, it was just the same way that I was in the studio all the time and basically sleeping on the couch and doing all that kind of stuff. I applied that same exact energy to running a business. It's just, let me read a book on this. Let me watch a video on that. Here's all these free marketing handouts. I'm going to download those and read them. We're going to try this thing out for 3 months. Oh, it sucks. And this was a total waste of time. Well, we learned from it. So let's keep it going. And so, yeah, it was just like trying to figure it out as we go. And for what it's worth, the best thing, and the only reason that I'm still in business at all is because we've had retention. Like for the people that we work with, they know that I am very committed to them. They know that I care about their show. They know that I want what's best for them. And so me operating in their best interest and doing the work that we do, it buys trust. And for being such a, relationship business, and it's podcasting, it's ongoing, you want to do this all the time, then you need those relationships. And so having people that were willing to stick with us as we figured all of this stuff out has been the reason why we've been, able to still do it.
You brought value to them, even though the business side of it might not have been all squared away. You brought value in what you could do for them, and you put that first, and they trusted you to do it. And yeah, I mean, bravo. Vince, we're up on time here. If you could let the audience know where they could find you, if they're interested in learning more about you, hearing other stuff about you, where can they find you on the web? And I'll get those links in the descriptions.
Yeah. So if you're a business owner with a podcast and you want help with that podcast, go to freepodcasthelp.com. That is the easiest way to get in touch with me. You get a 10-minute call. We get like super strategic, to the point. I'll give you all this feedback on your show. And same thing for launching a show. You want to figure out how to get started. How should I tie this to my business? What should I talk about? What do I need? freepodcasthelp.com. I will set you up in any way that you need, give you the best advice that I can to get you where you want to go.
Awesome. And the podcast,
Yeah, let's do that too. So it's called It's Not Just Talking, because everybody talks about podcasts and goes, oh, it's just talking. So I'm like, no, it's not just talking. So that's the name of the show. If you're a business owner with a podcast, it is just obsessively talking about what it takes to build a great show for your business. So that's all we do.
Awesome. Vince, I appreciate you being here, and hopefully we get to catch up soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Brian.